Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I would like to welcome you all to the DuSable Museum in support of the African Descent Citizens Reparations Commission and our public hearing. I will now turn it over to Commissioner Ted Williams III for an introduction of our choir.
Thank you again for being here, everyone. I will come back in a moment to say officially a bit of a welcome, but before we do that, I'd like to invite this wonderful choir up. Part of our liberation struggle has been a struggle that we have used music and the arts to heal, to inspire, to transform. And so in my work, in one of the hats that I wear, I work in the artistic community, and I'm excited to introduce to you all today the group called Brian Scott and the Rebirth Choir. Let's give a nice warm welcome for them, please. And they're going to kick off our event today.
Soon I will be done with the troubles of the world. Troubles of the world. The troubles of the world. Soon I will be done with the troubles of the world. Going home to live with
August 20th, 1619, 20 Africans arrived at Point Comfort, Virginia, aboard a Dutch ship. They were brought to America as human chattel to fuel a burgeoning economy which eventually would become the greatest in the world. For these men and women, the years that followed would be tremendous in terms of the pain and the progress that they would experience. They were added to an already existing labor pool of indentured Europeans and Native Americans. Eventually, the Europeans would be freed. The Native Americans would be annihilated and removed from their lands, yet this African labor source would be invaluable. They were also easily identifiable if ever they tried to escape their lifelong bondage. Their skin, beautifully colored by the melanin running through their veins, made it impossible for them to hide. Therefore, they were seen as different, socially different, culturally different, morally different. Their financial and psychological subjugation would last for generations. They came on the Isabella, the Amistad, the Lord Legionnaire, the Wanderer, the Antelope, the Henrietta Marie, and the Hope. They came on a journey.
please have the welcome video and the ADCRC explainer video played.
Thank you to our organizers, the Illinois African Descent Citizens Reparations Commission, for bringing everyone together. To Chair Marvin Slaughter Jr., the commissioners, and the dedicated team behind the ADCRC, I commend your dedication to leading this critical work. The ADCRC is leading a journey across our great state, a journey focused on addressing the systemic injustices that disproportionately impact Black Americans who descend from American chattel slavery. Through these public hearings, the ADCRC is offering a platform to amplify voices that have gone unheard for too long. The Commission works to ensure that the full diversity of our people's experiences, ideas, and perspectives directly inform the policies shaping Illinois' path toward justice. The topics you will hear about today are not abstract issues. They are lived realities for many of our neighbors and friends. Their truths are inseparable from our history, present and future as Illinoisans. In hearing these voices, we take an essential step toward crafting solutions that address disparities and build stronger, more equitable communities. To everyone joining us today, thank you for your commitment to this cause. Your presence is a powerful reminder that collective action is key to dismantling structures of inequity. Before I go, I want you to know this. I stand with you in this work. Together, we are building a brighter, more just future for generations to come. Let us be courageous in acknowledging hard truths and be bold in envisioning a future that reflects true equity, opportunity, and dignity for all. Thank you, and I wish you a productive and impactful hearing.
My name is Marvin Slaughter Jr., and I am the chairman of the Illinois African Descent Citizens Reparations Commission. The commission was formed in 2021 as part of a broader strategy from the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus to dismantle systemic racism. Specifically, it falls under the economic pillar of reform, seeking to promote equity, equality, and parity for those who are African American descendants of slavery. We're dedicated to being transparent about the work of the commission. And as a part of that transparency, we do have a website, adcrc.illinois.gov, where members of the public can go to review our meeting minutes, our meeting recordings, and also stay aware and abreast of any upcoming meetings. We're intentional about attempting to engage with the public, and we also do have a petition of support and an email newsletter that will also help to keep the public aware of what the commission is currently doing.
My name is Twyla Moore, and I am a commissioner for the ADCRC. For sure, my professional background has driven me to be involved in the commission and to continue to move the work forward. I was a probation officer for 21 years, so I have a passion for serving the underserved, people who don't have a voice, people who tend to be overlooked. You know, that passion has really pushed me to become involved in the commission and to really give a voice to say, these are the areas that I know we need to focus on, and these are the areas where we can do more work to give a voice to those who aren't able to speak up and have a voice for themselves.
My name is Tim Williams III. I teach political science in the City College of Chicago, and I am a commissioner on the Reparations Commission. So reparations work is important not only for the nation, but really for the state. African Americans have 1/10 the wealth of people of European descent in this country. And so, and across the state of Illinois, we consistently rank in the lowest numbers around inequality for states. So this inequality will not fix itself. We have to do something. And so this work is really about exploring what the injustices have been, educating the public around this, and then recommending public policy that would address these issues specifically. But one of the issues that I personally am very passionate about, that we were kind of starting in, and we're dealing with other ones as well, but housing inequality, the loss of wealth and housing across the state. This has been a big issue. If you saw Evanston's work, they started with that issue as well, because really housing is the #1 way to build wealth in this society. So if you can deal with housing, you can start to deal with the wealth gap more quickly. But of course there's education. Of course there's lack of access to trades through unions historically for African Americans in the state. A number of other issues, but I think, as we go through this work, we are going to really, fortunately and unfortunately, see a wide variety of spaces and places where these injustices exist. Sometimes I think about people like Dr. King and Malcolm X and some of my heroes from the 60s. And I wonder what they would be doing if they were alive today. I think they'd be doing this.
The next speaking voice we'll be hearing will be that of Dr. Ted Williams III for our welcome.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their power from the consent of the governed. 250 years ago, these words were penned. 250 years ago, we started officially this experiment called United States of America. 250 years ago, we made a pledge to all citizens that there would be equality and justice for all. And here we are in the nation's 250th anniversary asking the question, have we truly become a society that works for all people? In the midst of this promise to all Americans, we understand that for really the past 400 years, people of African descent have been second-class citizens in this nation. And so it is incumbent upon all of us to decide what kind of country we're going to have in the next 250 years. You see, the work of repair and atonement is critical at this moment. We could not be at a better time, at a better place. If you were wondering, brothers and sisters, you are in the right place, at the right time, with the right people. Because this moment is really a crossroads. After the Civil War in 1865, the nation stood at a crossroads. And the nation had the decision to make. Would we become the first multiracial, multi-ethnic, functioning, equal democracy? Or would we allow the demons of this nation's founding to destroy the next 250 years? And in many ways, brothers and sisters, we have allowed this country to not live up to the promises on paper. I believe this work ends that today. The meaning of repair is to restore by replacing something that is broken. Every American must look at where we are today and decide that we are going to repair what has been broken. Unfortunately, we live in a time, ladies and gentlemen, where there is this desire, this lazy desire, this myopic desire to go back and have nostalgia about the past. There are people who want to go and make America great again. But the reality is that America has never been great for all people. And so today we decide that we are going forward and we are not going backwards. We decide today that we are going to figure out how to extend the promise of equality for all people. We decide that we are going to figure out how to extend the promise of liberty for all people. We decide today that we are going to figure out how to extend the promise of people, and that is what this work is about. We are here We are one of 3 state commissions in the entire nation that is doing this work. There are myriad commissions and task force all around the country. But brothers and sisters, I don't know about you, but sometimes I look and go, Lord, why has it taken so long? Just in case you missed that, I'll play it again for you. There is a Chinese proverb that says that the best time to plant a tree was 40 years ago, but the second best time is today. We have the work to do today. Let it not be said after our generation that this work was not done. Let it not be said for our children that this work was not done. Let us decide today that at this nation's crossroads, that this inequality ends, that this lack of atonement ends, and let us move forward towards the goal of making justice and liberty accessible for all people. In closing, I will say to you, and I thank you all for being here, but I will say that as we have done this work, it has been long. It has been hard. It has been arduous. It has been laborious. It has been challenging, and we're just getting started. And sometimes I wonder if just a few folks around the state, I know some of you who've been on this work for decades. Sometimes I wonder if just those few people can change the world. And I'm reminded of the Margaret Mead quote that says that never doubt that a small group of committed, thoughtful citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Our state needs us at this moment. Our communities need us at this moment. Our nation needs us at this moment. Thank you for being here and partnering with us in this work. And let us go expand the promise of equality and justice for all people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Williams. My name is Marvin Slaughter, Jr. I am the chairman of the African Descent Citizens Reparations Commission. I want to take a brief moment of personal privilege to acknowledge the rest of the commission, starting with Commissioner Ted Williams III, Secretary Commissioner Roger Elliott, Commissioner Monique Jones, Commissioner Carlton Mayers II, Commissioner Joel Sacknoff, Commissioner Dr. Jeffrey Trask, Commissioner Deborah Cosi Lane, Commissioner Rakisha Falon, Commissioner Twyla Moore, and Commissioner Jackie Algie. For those of you who do not know us, we encourage you to go to our website. We have bios up if you want to understand more about our bona fides, our experiences, and our professional backgrounds. All right, so the commission has been at work for approximately 4 years. That work has just now culminated in the publishing of our harm report, which was published at the end of February of the year of our Lord 2026. We've looked at the following areas. We've looked at enslavement in the state of Illinois. How many of you all, by a show of hands, know that the state of Illinois is a free state? Wrong. In fact, slavery was written into the Constitution of the state of Illinois and actually contributed up to 1/3 of its GDP as it was entering into the Union. We looked at racial terror and political disenfranchisement, the impacts that it had on those individuals who were enslaved and their descendants. We observed and looked at housing segregation, separate and unequal education. We looked through the pathology of the Black family, racism in infrastructure and environment. We looked at stolen labor and hindered opportunity, the unjust legal system, mental and physical harm and neglect, and how all of that has culminated in a wealth gap, which is about $220,000 between Black and white families in the state of Illinois. We wanted to understand the 5 W's: the who, what, when, where, and why. Who was impacted? What happened? When did it happen? Where did it happen? And who were the beneficiaries of why it happened in the first place? As we continue in this work, we encourage each and every single one of the members of the audience to read and review the report. We have actually just released our survey regarding the public policies that we are putting forth as recommendations. And we're encouraging you all to go on our website to rank those policies so that we have information to take to the legislature and to the governor with respect to what you want out of this commission. I thank you so much. And I would like to invite to the stage Nefertiti Bowman for details on the location significance.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to stand with you today on behalf of the DuSable Museum and Black History, the DuSable Black History Museum and Education Center, to ground this moment in significance of location. I am Nefertiti Bowman, and I serve as the Director of Development and Partnerships here at the DuSable. It is an honor to welcome you into this space, one that holds profound historical, cultural, and community significance, not just for Chicago, but for this entire nation. The DuSable Museum is the nation's first independent Black History Museum, founded in 1961 by Dr. Margaret Taylor Burroughs in her home. This act was deliberate, it was bold, and it was a declaration that Black history, Black culture, and Black contributions be documented, honored, and shared on our own terms. Dr. Burroughs often said this museum was the only one that grew out of the indigenous community, that the origin story, foundation of everything that this institution represents. This year, we celebrate 65 years of that legacy. This location matters because we are centered in Washington Park on Chicago's very own South Side, within a landscape shaped by the Great Migration, where generations of our families came north, seeking dignity, safety, and opportunity. This ground that we stand on carries their stories, their faith, their creativity, their resilience, and the very lives that built this great city. To gather here today for this hearing is deeply meaningful. This museum bears the name of John Baptiste Point DuSable, the Haitian-born founder of Chicago, a reflection that the truth of our presence in the city has always been here, cultivating it from the very beginning. It reminds us that the work we are engaged in is connected to real people, real histories, and communities that continue to shape this very city every day. Spaces like DuSable exist so those stories are no longer lost, that they are held and honored and shared in ways that bring us closer together each day. For those who may be visiting for the very first time, please take this in. You are standing in a place built by and for our community that chose to preserve its history even when it was not always recognized or valued. I also want to extend a personal invitation to each and every one of you that there is no greater time than now to engage more deeply with the DuSable. Please bring a friend, please return and bring your family, or consider becoming a member of the nation's first Black History Museum. Your presence and your support ensure that we sustain this work and can continue to show up for moments like these that bring people together in reflection, dialogue, and shared understanding. As we begin today's hearing, I invite us all to remain grounded in where we are, to listen deeply, be present with one another, and to carry this work forward with collective care. Thank you so much.
Now we will move into the presentation portion of our program. And I will invite the Reverend Dr. Jonathan Brooks, who is the lead pastor of Lawndale Christian Community Church, to the stage to discuss the pathology of the Black family.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. Reverend Dr. Jonathan Brooks, lead pastor at Lawndale Christian Community Church, as well as the chief operating officer for the Lawndale Christian Ministries. And I'll be actually talking about the religious imperative, a moral and theological case for reparations. We gather today in response to a report, more than needed report that does something both simple and profound. It tells the truth. Taking account a history of racial harm and injustice against Black Illinoisans makes clear that the disparities we see today are not accidental. They are the result of decisions, policies, practices, and systems that have over generations extracted, excluded, and harmed Black communities in this state. So the question before us is not simply political. It is not merely economic. At its core, it is moral. I dare say for many of us, it is theological. When harm is engineered, repair cannot be optional. Every meaningful act of repair begins with truth. In Scripture, we see this pattern repeatedly. Before there can be restoration, there must first be confession, an honest accounting of harm done, not vague acknowledgement, but specific truth-telling. This report, which I love, is in many ways a form of public confession. It names the harm, stolen labor, stolen opportunity, and stolen dignity. And if we take that truth seriously, then we must also take seriously what follows. Please hear me. In both moral philosophy and theology, truth creates obligation. I've read in a good book that once the prophet Amos cried out, "Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream." Oh, but justice does not roll unless something is released. In Illinois, what has been released for generations is harm. Harm through policy, harm through exclusion, harm through extraction. And this report names it plainly. So the question before us today is no longer whether harm happened. The question is whether we have the courage to repair what we now have the evidence to prove. Justice requires restoration, not just recognition. See, there's a difference between recognizing harm and repairing it. Can I get an amen? Too often we settle for acknowledgement without action. But justice, real justice, demands more. See, in the biblical tradition, when harm was done, the response was not simply an apology. It was restitution. When Zacchaeus, a tax collector who has an impromptu encounter with Jesus, encounters transformation, he doesn't just say, "I'm sorry." No, in order for salvation to come to Zacchaeus' home, he says, "I will repay fourfold what I have stolen." Why? Because he understands that justice is not complete until what was taken is in some measure restored. Reparations are not about charity, they're about justice. They're about addressing a moral debt that has accumulated over generations, one that is measurable not only in dollars, but in lost lives, in lost wealth, and in lost possibilities. Oh, but be careful, there's a danger in moments like this. We can gather, we can listen, we can even agree, and still leave unchanged. But truth without transformation is simply performance. In the biblical tradition, confession was never the end. It was also and always the beginning. If you truly confess harm, you are bound to pursue repair. That is why in their book, in which I love and my beginning journey into the work of reparations, From Here to Equality, Reparations for Black Americans in the 21st Century, my fellow presenters, Dr. William Darity and Kirsten Mullen, write, reparations are a program of acknowledgement, redress, and closure for a grievous injustice. Not acknowledgement alone, not apology alone, but redress. Because justice is not symbolic, it is material. Now, here's where I spend most of my time trying to convince many of my fellow Christian believers and leaders that sin is not only personal, it is structural. One of the most important insights from both theology and this report is that wrongdoing is not only individual, it can and has been embedded in systems. We're comfortable talking about personal sin in church, individual acts of prejudice or individual discrimination, but this report forces us to confront something deeper: structural injustice, policies that segregated neighborhoods, systems that denied access to loans, practices that over-police and underprotected Black communities. No single person created all of this, but all of us live within what was created. That means responsibility is not just individual, it is collective. The moral question is no longer, did I personally cause this? The question is, now that I know, what is my responsibility to help repair it? We have to tell the truth, not only about what happened, but how it happened. This was not just individual prejudice, this was policy. Redlining was policy. Segregation was policy. Disinvestment was policy. Mass incarceration is policy. And if the harm is systemic, then any response that is merely individual will always fall short. You cannot fix structural injustice with symbolic justice. You need structural repair. That is what reparations represents. Not charity, not guilt, but justice applied at the scale of the harm. And this is a moral obligation. Now there's another danger, everyone. That danger is delay. You know, we will be told to study a little bit more, to wait just a little bit longer, to move cautiously before we make decisions. But let's be honest, delay has always been the language of denial. Justice delayed is not neutral, it compounds the harm. Every year without repair is another year where the wealth gap widens, another year where opportunity is denied, another year where the consequences of past injustice are only carried into the future. There comes a time when the only faithful response is not more conversation, but as our commission has showed us, it's action. So repair in our religious forms, we use the language of reconciliation, bringing things back together. But let me tell you something about reconciliation. Repair is the only path to reconciliation. We often talk about reconciliation. Yes, it's a powerful word. It's a hopeful word. And in my faith tradition, it's a biblical word. But reconciliation without repair is incomplete. You cannot reconcile what you have not attempted to restore. Reparations are not about dividing people. They're about making reconciliation actually possible. They're about creating the conditions where trust can be rebuilt, where dignity can be affirmed, and where communities can begin to heal. But everybody, let me help you understand that this is not just policy work. This is soul work. See, this moment is bigger than policy. It's about identity. Who are we as a state? What do we do when the truth is undeniable? Because future generations won't ask whether we had enough data. They will ask whether we had enough courage. Courage to move from report to repair. Courage to move from acknowledgement to action. Courage to move from history to justice. So this moment is an opportunity for Illinois not just to acknowledge its history, but to take responsibility for it. An opportunity to move from awareness to action, an opportunity to move from report to repair, an opportunity for future generations to look back on this moment and ask, when the truth was made clear, what did we do? So do you believe? If we believe in justice, then we must pursue restoration. Do you believe? If we believe in truth, then we must accept responsibility. Do you believe? If we believe in the dignity of every human being, then we must be willing to repair what has been broken. Do you believe? If you believe, then reparations are not the end of the story. If you believe they are more than a beginning, they are just one step towards a finality of an ending. The prophet did not ask for permission to speak truth, so let me declare it the way that they did in prophetic times. Let me declare this plainly. If harm is done, it must be repaired. If wealth was stolen, it must be restored. If dignity was denied, it must be affirmed in tangible ways. This is not radical. This is not ridiculous. This is righteous. Reparations are not rewriting the past. They are about refusing to let injustice have the final word. Do you believe? Do you believe? Do you believe? Then let justice roll down like a mighty river, not just in rhetoric, but in repair. Thank you for my time.
I think I'm gonna let that sizzle a little bit. Okay. Pastor, where you say your church at? There we go. Okay. You might have a new parishioner on Sunday. All right. Next, we would like to invite to the stage our esteemed guest, my mentors, Dr. William Darity Jr. and A. Kirsten Mullen, to talk about the racial wealth gap.
Hello, Chicago. And hello, DuSable. It is a pleasure to be here. A long time coming in many ways. I wrote about the DuSable 40 years ago. Two pieces. The first was for the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And I had attended a conference, mostly what we then called blue bloods. These were white women mostly, who were the daughters of our quote unquote founding fathers. And they were asking, why are Black people here at this conference on historic preservation? They have nothing to do with our history. And there were maybe, I think, 8 Black historic preservationists there, including myself. And we said, we built this country. There would be no historic preservation if not for us. But at any rate, I digress. But I had mentioned the DuSable in that article, and talking about our history and our just sort of integral connection to the structure, the physical structure, and the financial structures of this country. So, very good. So, special thank you for this opportunity to testify before you today, and also it gives me great pleasure to speak on behalf of the ancestors who we celebrate, who struggled, and without whom we would not be here. So we begin with a quote from Malcolm X, Black nationalist leader, whose words spoken in 1964 are very relevant to our conversation about reparations today. So he writes, if you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. If you pull it all the way out, that's not progress. Progress is healing the wound that the blow made. And they haven't even pulled the knife out, much less heal the wound. They won't even admit the knife is there. So for us, state and local reparations do not stop the harm. They are compensation for the victims for the harms that they incurred. We view reparations as the compensation. So what is reparations? The program of acknowledgement, redress, and closure. And special thanks to the Reverend Dr. Jonathan Brooks for setting the stage. Acknowledgement, the culpable party's admission for the atrocity. Admission should include an enumeration of the damages inflicted upon the victims and the advantages appropriated by the culpable party and an agreement to undertake redress. So it requires action, right? Sincerity and action. Redress, acts of restitution, steps taken to heal the wound, monetary payments. I want to say that the admission of responsibility should insulate a reparations plan from adverse judicial review. This is one of the comments that we hear often. You know, this is not going to happen if you're focusing on race, right? But if you're talking about a plan that is undergirded with judicial, that is, what am I trying to say? A plan that is sort of protected from judicial review. This is something that we are advocating. So acts of restitution or redress, which is steps taken to, quote, heal the wound. This is monetary payments. People often say to us, well, it's more than a check. And we say, let's start with that check. Okay? And then we'll talk about the other programs. Let's run that experiment. And then C, this is ARC, A-R-C, the C of ARC, closure. This is perhaps the most controversial aspect of the plan. So it's an agreement by both the victims and the perpetrators that the account is settled. Representatives chosen by members of the aggrieved community can communicate with the culpable party to establish the point at which restitution is adequate for the debt to be paid. So no further claims would be made by the victims unless atrocities were repeated. I mean, we reserve the right to come back if atrocities are repeated or if new atrocities are inflicted upon Black Americans since U.S. slavery. All right. So what are the criteria for eligibility? So the first we say is at least one ancestor for the individual must have been enslaved in the United States. One ancestor. Self-identified also individuals as Black on an official document for at least 12 years before the enactment of reparations or the creation of a reparations commission. So you can't wake up tomorrow and say, I'm Black. You know, once you learn that reparations are a thing, because we know there will be people who will say, well, you know, my great, okay, 12 years. Nor do they include persons living as Black whose ancestors were not enslaved in the United States, or were, right? Anyone who is, not living as Black cannot be part of the committee of eligibility. So they probably do have a claim against their country of origin. So, for example, from Nigeria, Ghana, Trinidad, Jamaica, Antigua, yes, you absolutely have a reparations claim, but not to the U.S. government. That claim would be brought to the UK, the United Kingdom. It's interesting, there's an organization called CARICOM that exists to make reparations claims for individuals in the Caribbean. They don't include Black Americans, nor should they. But the reverse is also true. Okay. All right. So, 3 phases of atrocities that we want to focus on. People often talk about slavery reparations. We kind of flinch when we hear that term. It's not just slavery. Yes, slavery is a crucible from which all of these ills emitted, were born, but it's much, much more than that. So we also have the Jim Crow era, which I think is an absurd term. Let's call it what it was. 100 years of white terror campaigns. All right? Ongoing atrocities, mass incarceration, police execution of unarmed Black people, sustained credit, housing, and employment discrimination, and the immense Black-white wealth disparity, which we're going to talk about at some length. Black American descendants of U.S. slavery have borne and continue to bear the undue burden of the cumulative effects of all three of these phases of the nation's trajectory of racial injustice. So the bill, right? Who should pay the bill, reparations bill? And that is, who's responsible for the existence of the racial wealth gap? So the US government is both the culpable and the capable party. When we look at the Civil War, right, as it was grinding to a halt, President Abraham Lincoln approved the Port Royal project with allocations of 40, this is while the war was still happening, right? Black people were receiving 40-acre land grants, and these are Black people who supported the Union, right? Many of them had run away from the plantations where they had been enslaved. The program was formalized on 16th of January, 1865, with General William T. Sherman's Special Field Orders number 15, which designated some 5.3 million acres of land. This land was confiscated from the Confederates along the Atlantic coast, stretching from the South Carolina Sea Islands to the mouth of the St. Johns River in Florida. So it's interesting, many people have reported that an allocation of 400,000 acres was made, but in fact it was 5.3 million acres. We did the math, sort of doing the calculations, looking at those, the different districts, and we're talking about 5.3 million acres of land. In fact, 40,000 African-American families were settled on these lands. In fact, many people think, well, yeah, Black people got those 40 acres and a mule. Some did, for a short period of time. Abraham Lincoln's assassinated. His successor, Andrew Johnson, restores the land to the former Confederates. At the same time, though, the federal government was reneging on its promise to compensate the formerly enslaved population for their years of bondage. In 1862, it enacted the Homestead Act. And the Homestead Act gave not 40 acres, but 160 acres to white Americans, including recent European immigrants. So we're talking now about land that combined land mass was larger than Texas and California combined. This is what white Americans received. Okay? That promise, advantaged white population, was kept. Some 270 million acres of land. So 1.5 million white households were the recipients of this federal enrichment program. Today, that amounts to 30 to 45 million white Americans who are currently reaping the benefits of that government handout. The last land grant from this project to be completed was in 1980 in Alaska. Okay? So this was, a government handout of the highest order. This was the origin of the racial wealth gap. The government made and, the government sustained the racial wealth gap. There are many, many examples of government action and inaction that improve the financial well-being of whites while minimally impacting blacks. I'm going to give three examples just really quickly. The Chicago race riots, right, of 1919, which resulted in the loss of at least 23 black lives, hundreds of black people sustained serious injuries, over 1,000 black people lost their homes. The federal government did not step in and restore them. The city did not restore them, the state did not restore them. This was a case where, there were eyewitnesses, to the initial causes of the riot. Names were given to the police, and yet justice was not served. Move forward to 1944, the Servicemen's Readjustment Act, or the GI Bill, disproportionately provided education, home loan, unemployment benefits to white veterans, while building the white middle class in the process. Home ownership and a college education became a reality. In fact, Sandy's and my fathers both received the GI Bill for education, not to purchase a business, not to buy a farm, not to buy a house. So to give you some idea of the numbers that we're talking about, 16 million veterans, 14 million of them were white, who received benefits. Less than 500,000 in the entire country, black veterans received benefits, and most of those who did were for education. In the state of Mississippi, in 1 year, so Mississippi had 85,000 black veterans. No, that's right. Mississippi, 85,000 black veterans, men and women. How many do you think received GI Bill benefits? Give me a guess. For housing. How many? 200? 400? 0, hello. 2 out of 85,000. Southern politicians didn't play. All right. So the racial wealth gap, back here to 4. Back and forth we go. So now what we're talking about here is, the value of the racial wealth gap. Now, how high has it, what has it accumulated to at this point, right? So the amount of the bill, we're talking about 40 million eligible recipients at about $470,000 per person, which comes to $16 to $20 trillion. We view the racial wealth gap as the most robust indicator of the cumulative economic effects of white supremacy in the United States.
It's my turn?
Yes.
Let me see. Okay, here we go. So one of the things that we're going to say that I think is really provocative in this context is that a true reparations project necessarily must require federal action. And so we make the point here that reparations are not a matter of personal or individual institutional guilt. Black reparations are a matter of national responsibility. The federal government is simultaneously what we refer to as the culpable party, given the origins of the racial wealth gap, but it is also the capable party. It is the only party at this level of government that has the capacity to meet the full bill. So what do we view as the limitations of individual, organizational, state, and local reparations initiatives, what we refer to as piecemeal initiatives? So first of all, they will not satisfactorily provide restitution. Most efforts frequently involve acknowledgement. In some cases, like Evanston, Illinois, there actually has been some form of compensation. But the difficulty is that these forms of compensation are solely inadequate. And in fact, in the Evanston case, the focus on housing is problematic because although home equity is the primary source of wealth for people in the middle of the wealth distribution, we have to recognize that 97% of the wealth in the United States is held by households above the middle, above the median. And so if we focus exclusively on the characteristics of households at the middle, we're going to be excluding a vast amount of wealth that is relevant to the United States experience. More specifically, 1/4 of white households have a net worth in excess of $1 million, and this is true only for 4% of black households in the United States. And an additional point that's relevant here, if we look at that upper quarter of the wealth distribution, their primary source of wealth is not in home equity. It's in non-residential real estate, it's in financial assets like stocks and bonds, it's in business ownership, and it is in retirement accounts, which are also linked to the financial market. So the second complaint that we raise is that these are subscale, that it's impossible actually for all states and localities to meet the task of closing the racial wealth gap. Their combined budgets across the United States are $5 trillion, and we've just said that the minimum that's required to eliminate the racial wealth gap is $16 trillion. And finally, they're not systematic. They're incremental efforts that will not accomplish the goal of actually achieving the material conditions for full citizenship for Black Americans whose ancestors were enslaved in the United States. So more specifically, if we think about state and local initiatives, we argue that they are going to necessarily be incomplete, inconsistent, and inequitable. So incomplete, they're not going to meet the task. If we were to look at the state of Illinois itself, with a black population of about 2 million people, let's take half that population, being very conservative here, half that population as being eligible for reparations. If we take the figure of about $400,000 as the amount that would be due to close the racial wealth gap, and again, that's a very conservative number, the expense to close the racial wealth gap for Illinois' black residents would be $400 billion, and the state's annual budget is only $55 billion. In what sense are these types of projects inconsistent? Well, they're inconsistent because they're uncoordinated and decentralized. They're essentially a patchwork where there's no attempt to integrate the various kinds of local and state policies and programs together. And finally, they're inequitable because different projects in different locations provide different benefits. So the entire national eligible population is not all going to be receiving the same type of, quotes, reparations projects. There's even variation in who is deemed eligible from location to location for reparations. We're very grateful that the focus in Illinois is on Black American descendants of U.S. slavery, but that is not true in all of these state and local initiatives. Then finally, the last thing that we'd like to say today is that, in fact, we do feel that there are some vital tasks that can be performed at the state and local level. And so we highlight them here. The first is we need an accurate historical record of the atrocities. And so each state and local commission should undertake the task of providing the most accurate historical record of how white supremacy has operated within their domain or district. The second thing is, apart from the question of compensation, Kirsten talked about pulling the knife out as a step that precedes healing the wound. And what states and localities can do is pull the knife out with respect to the policies and practices that are in place within their domain that continue to inhibit and damage and potentially destroy the lives of Black people. So we don't call this reparations. We sometimes say maybe you should call it racial equity initiatives, but each state and locality needs to eliminate the practices that are destructive of Black lives. And so that would be the second major task. The third is something that no state or local program has attempted to do, and that is aggressively support an effort to produce a comprehensive national plan for reparations for Black American descendants of U.S. slavery. That's what we think is a vital step that should be incorporated in the types of reports that are generated at the state and local level, a plan of action for promoting federal reparations, and a set of steps for how the state and localities can proceed to do that. Last comment today. We're extraordinarily pessimistic about the prospects of a reparations plan being adopted by the current United States Congress. Okay. And in fact, we never got into this mission with an expectation that this might necessarily happen in our own lifetimes. And we're kind of old now, so. Yeah. But hopefully it will happen in the lifetimes of many of you who are present today. I want to provide one statement as grounds for optimism. In the year 2000, a survey that was conducted by Michael Dawson and Ravana Popov at the University of Chicago found that 4% of white Americans endorsed monetary payments as reparations for Black Americans. That's FOUR in the year 2000. In the year 2024, that percentage had risen to 28, which is not a majority, but it is a 7-fold increase. And the question becomes, can we cultivate and nurture that support to reach a point at which congressional action becomes a reality. Yeah.
I wanted to add one last coda, and again, following on the footsteps of the Reverend Brooks. You know, in 1800, probably no one thought that slavery would ever end. But there were abolitionists who were putting their lives on the line and doing that work, doing the research, writing letters, raising money, having education campaigns. In 1900, very few people ever thought that women would get the right to vote. But 20 years later, that happened. I was part of the generation of young people who were helping to liberate African and Caribbean countries from the European countries that had colonized and enslaved them. I belong to an organization called the African Liberation Support Committee. And this is when we and people around the world, thank you, were fighting for the end of apartheid, which people thought it's a great thing. It's making so many people wealthy. It will never end. So we are part of the cadre of people, and there are many of us. You know, we're on the stage with many of these people today who are doing that work, providing a blueprint, a map, if you will, so that you all can take those documents that we and others have created and move this mission forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Dr. Darity and A. Kristen Mullen. Our next featured speaker on stolen labor and hindered opportunity will be none other than Cleola Brown, who is the president of the National A. Philip Randolph Institute. Please welcome her.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. But I'm going to tell y'all from ADCRC right now, you're wrong for that. First, you invite me to come to Chicago, and it was supposed to be nice weather. It's cold as the devil out here, okay? Second of all, you have some of the most dynamic speakers that I've ever heard in a very long time speak before I get to come up here looking all raggy and country. Third, where's that pastor that preached? Well, okay, because I was getting ready to say something really bad about him. When he got to hooping and hollering, I wanted to jump up like I'm used to when I go to church and say amen and holler just a little bit because it was just wonderful. And then to have this couple come forward and teach, because that's exactly what they did. Giving the facts and the figures that were necessary in order to get things planted in our heads that were going to stick, and letting us understand that facts were absolutely necessary and essential to get things going. So I salute you as well for the work that you've done. Thank you so much for that presentation. I looked at the chairman this morning when I came into the holding room, and see, I'm from the country, y'all. I'm from South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. I'm a Geechee. That means as I talk, you better listen closely because I'm used to busting up the King's English at any given moment. I do have a college degree from FAMU, but it didn't stick like that, all right? My words are not going to be as eloquent or profound as some of the see, I've messed up one already. As them folks that talked before I got up here. But I looked at him and I said, my God, good morning. You sharp as a razor blade on both sides, a double edge. Look at him. Stand up for a minute, would you please? Would you do that for me? Look at this brother. You know what I'm saying? Yes. That's the kind of stuff that you feel proud about. And coming from South Carolina, I know when he said my name, he said something crazy like, well, who in the world named that child Cleola? Well, I just told you. In the South, when a woman has lost a child, she, if it's a girl or a guy, is named after the earth. That's why you hear a whole bunch of Eartha Mays and Claytons and all the rest of that stuff coming out of there, all right? And the oldest aunt gets the second half of your name. You don't get one name, you get two. Now, my mother and them named me Clay, and my oldest aunt, her name was Ola. So my name is Clayola. Now, that's how you remember stuff. You know what I'm talking about? Now, that Aunt Ola that I had was one of the meanest god doggone ladies that I've ever known in my whole life. Just mean as a snake, and she did not mind wearing the child's tail out. But facts are important to know who you are, where you came from, and how you got to be what you are today. Now, I was asked very nicely by Jackie, and I'm going to knock you dead in your neck when we get through for having me come behind all these important and smart people, to talk just a little bit about stolen labor and hindered opportunities. I think you got that in an eloquent way with the facts and the labels that make it make some sense. A lot of times you go to forums like this and people talk at you instead of talking with you. These speakers talked with us because I was able to follow them, and Lord knows that's a good thing for me, because otherwise I get to doing something while the talking is going on. But the conversation, which is what this ended up being, was one that made this room respond very quickly. In this room, I've got my labor family from SEIU. Would you stand up, please, because I'm proud of you. Please stand up. And there are quite a few others that are on this, what do you call it, the streaming and all of that stuff. See, I know what's going on. I just can't say it all the time in the right way, but y'all know what I'm talking about. So as we do the work that we do, the piece that I want to talk about, and I'm only going to take the 10 minutes that you gave me, sir, okay? A part of what we have to do is to remember that you don't have to be absolutely eloquent all the time. You have to be able to talk with people who understand exactly what you're saying and be just as regular as they are and be able to get the word out, okay? Because sometimes you just have to find the nosiest person in the community who sit outside and see everything that's going on. And then you tell them, I got something to tell you. We're doing the stuff about reparation, but I don't want you to tell nobody. Before you can get to your car, that message is going to start to reverberate all around the community. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Don't act like you always had the connectivity that you got now. A lot of folks have cell phones and all of the other kinds of things that get them through to people. We did not have that. I'm 77 years old, so I can talk about what used to be, all right? What used to be was good, hard footwork. Knocking on doors, talking with people, not at them. Going and doing the work and making sure you knew where the good food was being cooked at whose house. Make that your early stop so you got a full stomach. But that's what we're needing to do with all of this information that we receive today. Inside of labor, the question is real simple. All the hopes, wishes, and dreams are wonderful things, but without action, you don't have a doggone thing. Nothing. And in order to do that, you have to take the challenge. The kind of work that you were presented today is the piece that is the stepping stone to where we want to get to. Illinois, you ought to be super uber proud of what you put together. The kind of language that you've laid out in the reparation language that you offered us today. Name me 2 other states that has done that kind of work. I can't even name you one that has gone into the details that we saw here this morning. This was a pleasure. A part of all of this is to be able to look at someone once you leave here and get them as excited as you are about what needs to be next. If all you had was a good Saturday outing, then make sure you don't eat any of the snacks that they brought in the back room, all right? Because you should have come with a belly full. You didn't come to do anything but listen just for a hot minute and get gone. That does not work. If we're going to talk about the things that have to happen, then follow your gut, follow your mind. Know that if it's something that's dedicated to you, the person, make it something that you want to dedicate to someone else, a person who needs to understand that the fight for reparation is a real one. It's not something that we're doing to sound politically correct. It's something that we're doing to get what is ours. That should be about 9 minutes, correct? I'm watching you. And I think that you have exactly the gist of what I was trying to share with you. Talk without action is just a conversation. Talk with action is an accomplishment. So let's get with it, folks. When they give it to us, let's use it. I thank you all for inviting me and for having me for these few minutes of my learning. I learned today, and I appreciate all of that. Thank you all very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Cleola. Okay. All right. Now I would like to invite to the stage the mayor of the village of Brooklyn, Illinois, Mayor Trenton Atkins.
Kind of skipped around a little bit, I see, huh? Okay. Well, good morning, family, friends, and everyone here. I'm standing in the shadow of some giants. We're in a city that honors John DuSable, the black man who laid the first stone of Chicago greatness. But I also stand before you as the mayor of Brooklyn, Illinois, the first black incorporated town in the nation. Thank you. But today, we must speak a hard truth. The wealth gap we see today is not an accident of fate. It is a calculated inheritance. To understand why our pockets feel light today, we have to look at how the scales were tipped centuries ago. Not just in the deep South, but right here in the free soil of Illinois. While history books often point to Mississippi or Alabama, the truth is that slavery's shadow stretched all the way to the banks of the Mississippi River. Though black clothes enforced indentured servitude, the system was designed to ensure that even when a black person was free, they were never truly allowed to prosper. To understand the spirit of Brooklyn, Illinois, we must first look across the river to where the shadow of chattel slavery once loomed. In the early 1800s, to be an enslaved person was to be treated as property. Humanity stripped away and sold to the highest bidder. In 1829, Mother Priscilla Baltimore looked across the Mississippi River toward Illinois and led 11 families, a mix of horrors of Missouri slave state, on a perilous journey to the American bottoms. They named that new sanctuary Freedom Village. Even as slave catchers prowled the Illinois shore, the people of Brooklyn stood and watched when tragedy struck, when William Cowper was murdered in his own home. For protecting a fugitive, the community didn't break. Instead, they dug deeper. They built Quinn Chapel AM&E, where secret tunnels and passageways still exist as a testament to their work on the Underground Railroad. They proved that while the law might treat a person as shadow, no law could extinguish the divine spark of liberty. But looking through the eyes of Brooklyn, the village wasn't built on a gift. It was built on rebellion. It was founded by the formerly enslaved who crossed that river, not just to escape a whip, but to own their lives, their labor, and their land. We are the children of Priscilla Baltimore, a woman who saw a river as a gateway and a vision as a blueprint. At a time when the law said we weren't people, we built a government. At a time when the law said we couldn't own, we built a community. Yet, as Dr. King once reminded us, it is cruel just to tell a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. For generations, while others were given land grants and low interest loans, our ancestors in Brooklyn was navigating a system that actively worked to strip them of their equity. The wealth gap is the physical manifestation of those denied loans, restricted deeds, and stolen opportunities. But I am not here today to talk to you about what was taken from us. I'm here to talk to you and tell you what we are taking back. Brooklyn is not a museum of struggle. It is a laboratory of resilience. We close the gap, the wealth gap, by renaming it. We close it by investing with intention, not just spending our money, but circulating it. We close it by protecting our generational land so it stays in Black hands. We close it by teaching our children that they aren't just heirs to a struggle, but heirs to an empire building spirit. Brooklyn isn't looking for a handout. We are building a hand up. My experience of growing up in Brooklyn on Madison Street, that's now called the Mother Road of Route 66, for decades, the story of Brooklyn was told through the lens of what we lacked. They talked about the disinvestment. They talked about the silence of the tracks and the dust of the roads. They told a story of a town the world had forgotten. But I'm here to tell you that the ghosting is over. When we look around, our walls are finally moving. The signs are finally rising. For too long, the Mother Road, Route 66, acted like Brooklyn didn't exist. They mapped it, the journey, but skipped the soul. I want to mark your calendars. When we mark our calendars, I want to mark your calendars that on June 26th, on that day, we'll be celebrating the centennial of Route 66. And because of that day, we won't be just putting signs in the ground. We'll be putting Brooklyn back on the American map, where it always belonged. We are reclaiming our place on the Mother Road, and we are doing it loud and proud. That's just the beginning. We watched the railroads run through our backyards for a century, often leaving us with nothing but noise. But today, we have a partnership with that same railroad. We are moving past the decades of disinvestment into a new era of cleanup and expansion. We are making sure the industry that moved through Brooklyn now move with Brooklyn. So when people ask if our history matters, tell them to look at Quinn Chapel. That's just not a church with old bricks. We are restoring a sanctuary of freedom. We are opening those doors for tours so the world could see the fire that Priscilla Baltimore started. When people ask about how our future is funded, we tell them about the $2 million championed by Congresswoman Nikki Brzezinski for a new community center. A center that's just not a building, but it's a hub for our seniors, a classroom for our youth, and the heartbeat of the village. The world is finally tuning in. When KSD shared our Black History Month story, they weren't just reporting the past, they were witnessing a renaissance. So when people gather on June the 26th through June 28th for our homecoming reunion, we're gonna look at each other, our neighbors, and we're gonna realize that we weren't just celebrating that we survived, we'll be celebrating that we are advancing. The wealth gap was built over centuries, but we are closing it brick by brick, grant by grant, and sign by sign. Brooklyn isn't just a stop on the road for anymore. Brooklyn is the destination. When our children realize that their ancestors didn't just survive, they governed. So they will stop seeing history as a weight and start seeing it as a launching pad. The wealth gap is an American problem, but the solution starts in the streets of Chicago, in the streets of Brooklyn, where we are the legacy of those who crossed rivers. We are the descendants of those who built something out of nothing. And now it is our turn to build a future where our history is honored, our equity is secured, and our children will never, ever have to start from zero again. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Mayor Atkins. Now I'll call to the stage Fred Carter, co-founder of the Black Oaks Center. All right. Just got news that Mr. Carter is not feeling well, and we will call next to the stage Greg Kelly, the president of the Illinois State Council and HCIIMK SEIU.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Greg Kelly, and I have the honor of serving as president of SEIU Healthcare, a local union here in Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, and Kansas, 90,000 workers. And it is a union primarily of Black workers, and I'm proud to represent them. I want to first thank the members of ADCRC, and of course, Chairman Marvin Slaughter for having me here. And it's truly an honor to just be here in the space of giants and heroes like Dr. Darity. And I also want to acknowledge my dear sister Cleola, who is a mentor of mine and a giant in the labor movement. So I was asked to speak a bit today about the state of Black labor in the U.S., Jackie Algie. So I'll try to do that in the 10 minutes that I have. But I would say, in short, the state of labor in this country is abysmal. According to the Brookings Institute, in mid-2025 alone, 355,000 Black workers lost their jobs. Much of this job loss can be attributed to cuts made at the federal level of unionized workers. And has been widely reported, Black women have been disproportionately impacted by these federal cuts, leading to a nearly 33% decline in federal employment for Black women in just over a year. And for my union, which represents a number of federal workers at the VA system, the job loss has been significant. And it has gotten worse as this administration has sought to lead a mass exodus of workers, both voluntarily and involuntarily. And so we are in a moment of crisis in Black labor and amongst Black workers. And it isn't simply just because of unemployment, and it rightly gets its own attention, but the issue of underemployment and low wages has also disproportionately impacted Black workers. Again, my union, SEIU Healthcare, is a union of care workers who started coming together back in the 80s. They were home care workers, Black women, 7 of them, who had no right to form a union. They had no benefits to speak of. They were called sub-minimum wage workers, and some of them made as little as $1 an hour. In fact, they didn't even have the right to form a union because they were excluded from the Fair Labor Standards Act, meaning that they didn't make a minimum wage and they didn't have overtime, nor any of the federal protections. And so this system existed for decades until those workers right here in Chicago came together and decided that they wanted to form what is now SEIU Healthcare. And so the loss of wealth that those workers who tens of thousands over decades lost screams for reparation. We believe that as a labor union, our fundamental job is to correct wrongs. And in fact, that repair is what we try to talk about all the time as a labor union. And in fact, it is because of the work that they do and the people that they are that they were excluded from those protections. This exclusion, of course, was baked in decades ago and has had a lasting impact on these workers generations later. Seen through an historical lens, undervalued workers have relied on unions to create pathways to income and wealth growth. And so in my own personal experience, I can refer to my dad, who was a Vietnam veteran who came back to Chicago in the early 70s. And like many of his cohort who had served and were drafted into Vietnam, they came back looking for work. And in my father's case, he worked at Cook County Jail. And if you've been around Chicago long enough, you know that back in that time, there were two different jails in Chicago. There was the Cook County Jail, and there was the City of Chicago Jail. My dad worked for the county jail, which many of his cohort Black veterans worked at. There was no union there. And so my dad, along with his cohort, formed the first union of correctional officers at Cook County. And so that history is important because, in fact, today, most folks know that people that work for Cook County, you get a job working at the county jail, you've got a pretty good job. And in my case, it was because of that union job that we bought our first house that we still own to this day. I was able to go to college, my siblings also as well, but it was that union difference that provided us with a path forward. And so for us, again, repair requires organizing. Unions have a fundamental role in making sure that those things are repaired. And so as I close, I get out of the way, I would argue that organizing workers and supporting unions are key to addressing the systemic inequities that continue to disproportionately impact Black Americans, repairing the damage caused by slavery, Jim Crow, and discrimination will require many different strategies. And in my view, making it easier to join a union is an important strategy. Black labor's more important than ever. And if we want to decrease wealth disparities, organizing more workers into unions is one proven method of doing it. We should all do all we can to support unions and make sure that it's easier for workers to join unions, regardless of the type of work that they do. Doesn't matter whether you have a blue collar, a pink collar, or no collar at all. The trades have their role to play, but those are limited jobs. There are only a few thousand of those at a time. But healthcare jobs, service sector jobs, there are millions of them. And if we really want to change the wealth gap, increase the income of working people, millions of working people, we need to make sure that they all have an opportunity to be in the union. And a major component of repair for Black communities must include making it easier for all workers to join a union regardless of their job. Thank you.
Now, as we prepare for the public comment section, we would like to ask for a selection from the choir.
I
Rebirth Flag. Let's give them another round of applause. We have now come to the part of our program that you are calling with public comment. I will be calling up individuals in groups of 5 for public comment to the mic in the middle. Your public comment is 2 minutes. At the 2-minute mark, please understand that you will be politely interrupted to let you know that your time has expired. But we have, and we do offer a public forum at every one of our public meetings to offer public comment, and we receive public comment at our both at our website and our email at comments.adcrc@illinois.gov. Our first 5 people: Leslie Harden, Felita Atkins, James McCoy, Cole Chief, and Coleman Good.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Leslie Harden for the Village of Brooklyn, and I think we signed our name on the wrong sheet because I do not have a public comment, but since you called my name, and Felita Atkins, we're here with Mayor Atkins from Brooklyn. I'm his niece and she's his wife. Great job to all the speakers. This was very informative, and we support the mission of the commission, so great job.
Good morning. My name is Coleman Good, and I am a resident of Rogers Park, Chicago. I am also a descendant of people who were enslaved on this soil, and I'm here today because that history is not behind us. It is underneath everything we are still living with. I saw it when I drove Uber on the west side with the lack of grocery stores. I see it in the empty lots on the south side. I'm here in support of House Bill 1227 and the Enslavement Era Disclosure and Redress Act. This bill asks corporations and institutions that profited from enslavement of my ancestors to be transparent about that history and to contribute to repairing the harm that they caused. That is not radical. That is the bare minimum of accountability. I've lived in Chicago for over 20 years, but I consider it my home. I've made roots here. I fell in love here. I've discovered my career, found chosen family, and learned of the rich history of Black Chicagoans who built wealth that was stolen. Lived in neighborhoods like Bronxville, and Inglewood that were redlined, and attended schools that were deliberately under-resourced. The harm is documented. The perpetrators are known. What has been missing is the will to act. I am asking this commission to be the body that finally acts. I am here with the Get Free Chicago, and we are demanding that you all adopt House Bill 1227 as a legislative priority. Go on record today as standing with the descendants of enslaved people, not in words, but in action. We have waited long enough, and we have a fascist regime that is actively targeting our community. It is time we stop telling Black people to pull themselves up by broken bootstraps. And as this country approaches its 250th anniversary, Illinois has a choice. Reckon honestly with what was done, or celebrate a lie. We are here because we are done letting this state look away. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. First off, I want to thank you all for the work that you guys have put into this. Thank everybody for coming. I feel like this generation is the generation that's going to get us reparations. I feel like when it comes to problem solving, this is why we're here. And I believe that we all have the intent to make sure that the conversations we're having right now, the next generation doesn't have to worry about. The next generation doesn't have to worry about this because we're going to handle it now. We're going to make sure the job is done with this generation. So thank every single last one of you. One thing I want to say is we need to be clear, all right? Because there's a lot of muddy waters here. There's things that are vague. One issue that I feel like we're having is the qualifications for who gets reparations, okay? The eligibility of reparations. We have to understand that this is not about unity. As great as that is, this is not about everybody feeling welcome. As great as that is, this is about solving a specific problem that has happened to a specific ethnic group of people. When I hear, thank you, everybody, thank you. I'm not trying to shush you, I'm just saying thank you, okay? The term African descent citizens, My thing is that's too vague, okay? When we talked about, oh, thank you, sir. When we talked about when Japanese got their reparations, all right? They didn't say Asian descent, okay? They were very specific on who was owed reparations. And that specificity is needed in this case more than ever. Because when you say African descent, that does not necessarily make sure that it's about Black Americans who are descended from American chattel slavery. And we have to be clear about that. This is not about dismissing anybody. This is not about hating anybody. They have their own claim for reparations, and I 100% support that. However, our claim needs to be specific. If we're going to solve the issue, that's okay. Thank you. Thank you.
My dear. Mic check. Mic check. Mic 1 2. Mic 1. Mic 1 2. Mic 1 2. Mic check.
Yagad Rising. I am a hard mind damage survivor and crimes against humanity descendant who the United Nations, when they voted slavery a crime against humanity and said it always has been, they called it the greatest Holocaust in the history of humankind. We have to, we had a whole history, 400-year history, Negro spirituals, Negro baseball league. We had a culture for 400 years until Barack Obama, who said that he was not, Black has no standard in law, that he was not the first Black president, that he was the first Kenyan American president. He claimed a country. Like it or not, the only country that we have is the United States of America, which even Trump said Black people built this country. Harris said the middle class did it, and there was no middle class in 1776. And Biden said the immigrants built it, but we built it, and we have to claim who we are. If you are in the country before it becomes a country, you are indigenous. We are indigenous Negro American Africans. You claim the country, but never forget the continent before enslavement. And everybody else got their own issues, but everybody that came over here came over from a land that had a language, and they came by choice, whether that was Haiti or Jamaica or Ireland or Europe. They came from a country. This is our country. Indigenous Negro American Africans, NAAs without the CP. It's not that difficult. And if you're not, this was our history, as I said, for 400 years before Barack Obama came in without jurisdiction and claimed a continent. Africa is a continent with 26 countries the size of America or larger.
How y'all doing? Good morning, good afternoon. At some point, well, thank you, first of all, thank you for this meeting. Thank you for Dr. Darity and all the necessary players to get the right information. The thing is, we have to actually make sure that we actually put words into action. I think that we've had the necessary conversations online and offline. Not everybody is tech savvy. We have to make sure that we do our due diligence and stand on the right information. We have a current administration. We have one wing that wants to not have the necessary conversation unless it's convenient. We have the other side that gaslights that side and not actually do anything to fight against it. We do our generation and our next generation and our community a total disservice by not making sure that this gets done. No other community is being told that their net wealth is due to be zero in less than 30 years. No other community. And we've literally been gaslit at least 2 years ago when we saw the literal receipts of what other communities were getting, especially crossing the border, while our community that built this country And it's the reason why this is the superpower that it is. Didn't even see 1% of it. Even when they went to war and came back with blown off limbs and all kind of PTSD. We already deal with that from slavery, but PTSD of fighting for this country and being told that we're getting whatever the little bit, the crumbs that we were given was being slashed in half. We have to do better as a community to make sure that this gets done. We have to do better at holding the government accountable. The only problem is when people like to play partisan games, it doesn't get us anywhere. We're not playing Democrats versus Republicans anymore. We need to hold the government accountable and say, hey, we got the paperwork as far as our lineage that trace to this land. We got all kind of receipts that say that we built this from the ground up. Where is our just due? I don't want to hear you're hating on new people and you need to focus on yourself. We are focusing on ourselves. We are delineating and we're making sure that our stuff gets done. All I'm saying is, where is our just due?
Hello, everyone. I see some familiar faces. Jackie Algie, Deborah Lane, Marvin Slaughter, just incredible people. My name is Erica Nanton. I am the community organizer for St. Sabina, Auburn Gresham, Southside Chicago, former tri-chair of the Illinois Poor People's Campaign, and 2022 representative at the United Nations for the third committee to eliminate racial discrimination. So I actually went to the United Nations in 2022 with a shadow report, 21 pages with research. And actually, I saw Dr. Darity here. I also referenced you too, Marvin, and A.K. Mullins. And in that report, I basically laid out a transatlantic solution to reparations that it coincides with the local one. And the one thing I wanted to bring to the commission is that while doing this work, I think it's very important that we solidify the local work. We must protect that local work. However, when I went to the United Nations, one thing that I presented in the argument was that this was a global crime. Transatlantic slavery was not a local crime. It was a cooperative crime with multiple nations. Kidnapping millions of people from their land is a heavy lift. And it was not done by individual nations. And so also what happened was the exchanging of the funds between multiple nations. And those nations still possess those funds today. So what does that mean? That means that the very money we are commanding and demanding also turned into pounds. It also turned into francs. It also turned into other forms of currency. And so what I'm proposing to our commissions locally, globally, is that we cannot leave out a global solution because the criminals who committed the crimes against our ancestors always work globally. They always work globally to commit the crime. So if they're gonna work globally to commit the crime, they're gonna work globally to fix it. And that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Lynn Mock, and I want to thank the panel for what you all have done. I'm also on the Chicago Reparations Task Force. I have a request for every person in this audience. Talk to your elders. Document your harm. Fill out that survey. That's what we can do right now. Talk to your relatives. Talk to your friends. We need to really have a groundswell of this. My family, when I started looking through your report, it's excellent. My family suffered from educational apartheid, health issues, economic wealth disparities, and criminal justice. One of my cousins ended up in that black site over on Holman Square. He was supposed to be in jail, okay, honestly, but he was in a black site where he should not have been. I was able to trace my genealogy back to the northern part of Cameroon. And my aunt, who's our family genealogist, traced us back to a plantation in South Carolina. I know my family fits the criteria. But what I want the audience to think about is how were you impacted in terms of underinvestment in your education? We have a disease in our family that comes from Scotland. It is not found in Africa, okay? That's impacting my family for generations. My family on my mother's side is being plagued by cancer. That comes from the toxins they were exposed to in poverty here in Chicago. I've been underemployed even though I have a doctorate. We lost our family home on the west side of Chicago from predatory loans. Redlining kept us from investing in neighborhoods where our wealth could grow. These are issues that we need to document. So it's good to tell the panel what they need to do, but I'm telling the audience what you need to do. Talk to your family. Put your family name in the public record. Do your genealogy research. Okay, thank you.
Can we please have mic check?
My name is Deco Chief and a place to be. Southeast Side Chicago Foundation of Black American. Look, I'm just speaking because Earth, Wind, and Fire said we gotta have love for ourselves. You know what I'm saying? I feel that way. And here's the thing: they showing love to everybody else. It's hard for me being tall. Can I do this? All right. Hey, look. The neighborhood where I stay over east near Commercial, they spent $70 million on building the streets up in less than 2 years. I've been living over there for over 50 years, and they would never even spend enough money to fix potholes. You dig what I'm saying? When they brought them people over there, they gave them all places to stay in the same buildings that some of my brothers and sisters was trying to use as community centers. They refused, but they moved immigrants inside. Hey, look here. On that same strip where they spent all that money, those immigrants are now opening businesses. My friends who I grew up with went to elementary school with. I had 5 different friends from 5 different families living in one house because all of their houses getting snatched. I did a survey from Colfax to Commercial, which is a 6-block walk. On every block, there's one immigrant that owns at least 4 houses. I'm saying this ain't right now. If we gonna go on here, reparations is a must. It's very important. But if our focus is on reparations for the world and not for Black Americans, then hey, you see where they at now. Where you think they're going to be after they get that coming there? So my thing is, let's stand strong and be proud as foundational Black Americans and put ourselves first. That's all I have to say. Land my plane.
All right. I would like to invite our next batch of 5 up to the stage. Alberto Williams, Mr. Stephen A. Dillard, Miranda Alexandria, Daryl J. Hurd, and Shelby Thurman.
Hello, my name is Alberto Williams. I am a local Chicagoan and living in the Rogers Park area. And this is my first time ever coming here. And I just want to express how grateful I am to be able to have been referred to this by my friend Coleman, who was up here. And I want to say how grateful I am to be able to learn about things like this as somebody who is in predominantly white areas. That's my schooling with DePaul as in computer science, as well as like neighborhood I live in. And one thing I wanted to bring up, I want to say to everybody in the audience, as well as the board, is to keep speaking about the issues and don't water them down to make, I guess, like this is issues that I face being in predominantly white areas, and don't water them down to make, I guess, white people more comfortable. Because the thing is, like, if the more, as I've seen throughout the years when we had Black Lives Matter go through, when that trend that was kind of handled as was over, you start seeing these environments quickly revert back to their initial Black segregation and tokenizing ways. Well, tokenizing was probably the only new thing they brought up, and it was like trying to like be performative about things. And I want to encourage people to not be happy with to look at how things are being handled by our white people and really like look at it. Is this real? Are they really trying to fix and understand the issue, or are we just trying to get performative? One thing I've seen that is a quick disclosure indicator of it is give me the solution right now. I don't want to hear the problem. Just give me solution. And that's all I got.
Hello, my name is Steve Dillard, brother A-Law from A-Law Solutions, which means against living among white supremacy. I see what you guys are trying to do, which we know that each and every one of you guys are probably educated correctly. Are you? Yes. So when you're trying to bring a bill or any type of reparations, you know that it's going to be shut down because they don't do race-based reparation. You put up African is not constitutional. Africans are not in the Constitution. So are you working with the Democrats to make a bill and to kill a bill to say that we tried? This is the type of coonery and buffoonery that we have in politics. We have black faces, and I don't know what this dude is, but we have black faces who out here just come in and just say that, guess what? We're going to try to stop foundational black Americans from getting their reparations. I'm worried about the children, you old people who are up there who's getting a check, because you are getting a check for coming up here every month. Who's paying you to get a check to come up here and do this nonsense? And Mr. Smiley Face, you are just despicable as a man. So I really don't know. I don't care. But the deal is this: reparations, cash reparations, and protection. An anti-black crime bill. Not one of you guys even talk about an anti-black crime bill.
Time.
That's why we all get killed in the street.
Before we continue, I would like to make one thing perfectly clear. We will have order in this public hearing. For those individuals who are not familiar with this commission that has been in operation for 4 years, we are a lineage-based commission. Read the bill language. Do not pay attention to just the title of the commission. Read the bill language. This commission is for American descendants of slavery. Period. So we understand the lineage argument very well. We have been meeting for 4 years, and we have addressed the issue of making sure that we have something that can withstand legal scrutiny. And in addition to that, every commissioner here is a volunteer. We put in thousands of hours of work to be able to address this issue on behalf of our community. Not a single cent is paid out to us, and you can check. You can FOIA that information. Now, thank you all so much. Please continue.
Got you. Good afternoon. Thank you guys for all your hard work and all your speakers for coming out and sharing your knowledge with us. But I'm here to demand that the Illinois Reparations Commission formulate a request letter to Governor Pritzker. This request letter will demand Governor Pritzker sign executive orders for the repair of descendants of U.S. chattel enslavement. These executive orders will include, but not limited to, specific designation for descendants of U.S. chattel enslavement as descendants of freedmen, establish an office of descendants of freedmen affairs, and immediately reallocate 50% of minority set-asides for grants, contracts, employment services. Because we need our benefits right now. We can't wait no longer. It's time. This political arena has shown us that we don't have to wait on no bills. That our governors and our mayors, they can sign executive orders to get things done. So I'm asking that this commission formulate a letter and demand that Governor Pritzker do these things by executive order to get the ball moving. Because what I don't want to do is sit on a bill and talk for another 4 years. I'm ready to see action, and I'm ready to see results. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now hear this. Now hear this. Reparation now. Reparation now. I'm Brother Darrell Hurd. I'm with the Chicago Nakoba chapter. I work with the African descendant affiliations and a lot of coalitions in this here group to try and get reparations now. So that therefore all of us is iterating the same thing, reparations now. If you're not familiar with the Chicago Nakoba chapter, I will have handouts that you can get in contact with us. But without delay, and with all I have to say is that there's a lot of ongoing projects. HB 1227, we're trying to get through the state of Illinois. The city of Chicago is doing outstanding things. The state of Illinois is doing outstanding things. We are a leader and a pace setter throughout the world for reparations now. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
I don't know. Look, we gonna try to make it work. I'm short, but you know what? I'm gonna make it happen. Hey y'all, my name is Miranda Alexandria. That was just my co-chair from the Chicago Nakoba chapter, and I'm also the co-chairwoman, right? And a lead organizer with an emerging organization. Get free, talk about it. All right, raise your hands. It's a millennial and Gen Z-led organization for reparations, and I am here. And a member of the city reparations task force. Right, thank you. I'm here to ask the commission to adopt House Bill HB 1227, also known as the Illinois Enslavement Era Disclosure and Redress Act, as a legislative priority because this bill requires no taxpayer dollars and no mandates. It asks that corporations that benefited from Black people from the slave trafficking, we need to stop calling it a trade because it was not a trade, it was trafficking, and the enslavement era and any indirect financial benefits, they have to be transparent about that history. And it creates pathways to redress as a foundation for our reparations, okay? So, Illinois has the opportunity to lead the nation for a corporate accountability framework with this bill because it is market-based, dignity-centered, and it is a bill whose time has come. So, I'm just grateful for this commission's leadership. Everybody who's in here, I definitely see a couple of familiar faces, and I just want to say thank y'all because y'all here on a Saturday afternoon doing the work. So thank you. We are ready to move forward with you all for the next step. All right, thank y'all.
Thank you so much. The next group of 5, we have Dr. British Reynolds, R. Brown, Marlon Watson, Sharina Horslin,
Hi, my name is Dr. British Reynolds. I have a background in public policy and urban education and also a former CPS teacher. I want to thank all the speakers. I was truly inspired by what you had to say. I do have a question. When it comes to reparations, particularly when it comes to public education, particularly here in Chicago, what is the commission currently doing to build networks and collaborative relationships to make sure funds are allocated, particularly in historically divested communities here in Chicago that directly impact Black folks, right? To make sure schools are resourced with materially, but also with teachers who have the knowledge and the care to care for our kids, right? And then also, what are we doing to ensure the communities in which those schools exist also are allocating funds to make sure repair and care is set in action? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, panel. I would like to say that reparations is for foundational Black Americans, and we should put other Black groups involved in this, in in our reparations here in this country. And we should get reparations also from Ghana, Ivory Coast, Nigeria. We should not only get financial assistance, but land from these West African countries. And we should get land and financial benefits from this country, United States. And reparations now a no vote for either party. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Marlon. Thank you, Marvin. Once again, this is a great panel. And all y'all that keep jumping on the name of the panel, y'all got to quit telling on yourselves. Read the bill. I know Marvin personally. He was part of that first group that took lineage-based reparations online and it took off across the nation. He was part of that first group. So we appreciate the passion, but come with facts. All right? But that's not even why I came up here. I came to thank Dr. William Darity and Kirsten Mullins. I had the opportunity to interview Dr. Darity online a few years ago. You got to forgive me for fanning out, but I hope I can get a picture with you and Kirsten before y'all leave. All the talk we hear about lineage-based reparations, whether it's FBA, American Freedmen, ADOS, all that comes from Dr. Darity, whether we know it or not. When you talk about, and I'm not talking about the vitriol related to it, when you talk about the modern era reparations schematic, who gets it, how much it should be based on data, who should pay it, how it should be distributed, that's Dr. Darity from 30, 40 plus years ago talking the same thing the same way. I see work from Darity from the 90s talking about it should be for those whose families were promised 40 acres and a mule. He didn't say FBA, but that's who that is. So I'm not trying to idolize Dr. Darity, but I just want to thank you and put on record that we're all pulling from the well of Darity scholarship.
Indeed. Thank you. Our next group, we have Christian Harris, Clifton Graham, Charles Muhammad, and Tyra Banks.
Okay. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Good to be here with you all. My name is Christian Harris. I am founder, former chair of the Oak Park Reparations Task Force, currently on the Chicago Reparations Task Force, and proud resident of Over East, 75th and Yates as well, and also a proud descendant of my oldest known ancestor, Fountain Blackwell, born 1807, enslaved. I'm here today to thank the Commission for their work. I know dealing with the still unhealed traumas of your ancestors is not easy, and so I appreciate you all for carrying this work. And to urge you to support House Bill 1227, the Enslavement Era Disclosure and Redress Act, to include that as one of your legislative priorities. I'm somebody that believes deeply that the federal government needs to truly account for the harms, but also that the state of Illinois has done harms to my family that need to be healed, that the city of Chicago has done harms to my family that they need to account for and need to address. So here's what this bill does. Any corporation seeking a state contract in Illinois worth $50,000 or more will be required to research and publicly disclose whether their organization has historical ties to slavery or the slave trade, and that disclosure becomes a part of the public record. Those corporations then have the opportunity to contribute to a redress fund, and this does something very profound. It moves us from silence to acknowledgement, and acknowledgement is where repair and healing begins, as we saw in the presentation today. For corporations, this can create an internal reckoning process, a structured opportunity to understand how their institution's history may still be shaping internal policies and who they serve. That kind of honest institutional self-examination is rare, and this bill helps make it routine. For the state of Illinois, I truly believe enforcing this bill with openness and rigor is an act of institutional integrity. It's an act of good faith to Black people. And it can help restore our faith that government can be used as a tool for equity. By opening up the procurement process, support the bill, learn more about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
To the esteemed commission, I'm honored to be here in your presence and have this opportunity just to say a couple of words. And also to the honorable audience, those who are here and tuning in. Thank you for everybody who supports these efforts. And as Brother Malcolm was acknowledged earlier in the program, he said many years ago that our case needs to be taken to the United Nations. And finally, last month, the United Nations General Assembly acknowledged what Malcolm had been trying to do for the longest. So even though we honor our ancestors and what work have been going on, I too will join that crew and pass this baton on to the future generations. I just want to make briefly a comment that we have been robbed of our extrinsic wealth in terms of the material wealth, but we also are being robbed of our intrinsic wealth, which is way more valuable, and everybody wants to appropriate what we have internally, and not only physically, our labor and all the things we contribute to building this country, but don't let them continue to rob our culture, our natural inheritance that we're passing on to the future generations, because that is so valuable. And I don't want to see my grandchildren have to suffer the trauma that we've had to go through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Tyra Banks. Not that one, but this one. I just want to say that when I first came into the conversation of reparations, it made me dig deeper into my ancestry, which was given to me by my great Aunt Martha some years ago. And doing my DNA and finding out who and what I come from. My family was exiled from Monroe, Georgia, 100 years ago. So I stand on the shoulders of that past. After digging deeper, I found out every Black man in my family was in the military, fought in the war in this country. So I stand on the shoulders of every veteran and of every war. I also stand here for my husband. I stand here for my father. I stand here for my uncle, who has never received a dollar for what they did in the military. However, they do receive their veteran benefits for the medical piece. My husband is the only one that benefited from the housing bill. So thank you for that information, because I didn't know. So me being here today, taking off work to be here, is important for my great nieces and nephews. And I will continue to carry on the Fulani tribe and the Creek tribe. But I also want to say, if you want to dig deeper about this African piece, look at what Essence, the owner of Essence, is doing to our Essence magazine and our Essence festival, because it's important, right? And that's really all I wanted to stand up and say, because I wasn't going to say anything. I just signed up in case I did. And I'm glad that I'm here, and I'm glad for the commission. And I actually just got the email yesterday. So I'm glad that I passed the email on to people, and I'm glad that I came. So thank you for the works that you guys are doing. It is impactful to the youth. It is impactful to me, and it's impactful to my mother and my greats. So thank you. And that's why I wanted to stand up. Thank you for the audience. This room should be filled. This room should be filled with the youth. This room should be filled with us, because this is important conversations, and I've been inspired to do more. So I just wanted to say thank you to each one of you up there for doing the work that you're doing, because although some may not be impacted and may not feel it, I do, and I know a lot of people will. So thank you.
Thank you, my sister.
Clifton Graham Jr. Real quick, I just like to, poor brother over there, he got booed and everything like that, so I don't want to get booed. Let you know that this man right up there is like a son to me, so what I'm about to say is nothing, and is nothing but positive critique of the event today. As I walked in, my mother was 50% blind and 90% deaf. So I recognized visual. That's what I recognized visual. When I walked in here today, I saw the white woman at the front desk. It reminded me when I was at EIU, president of the Black Student Union, when I came back and saw the white people, white woman, taking the names and information of the Black Student Union and not the representative of our own. So I asked myself as I looked at all that stuff, I said, dang, where is the white woman in this problem that we're having right now? Where are they at right now? What are they doing right now? I see them here, but I do not see them there. And they are a critical part of what's going on. This wasn't my speech at first. And what I'm real going to be quick about is that we need to look at their net worth and what they're doing, their part, to make this happen. This is my third or fourth event coming here. And visually, I have never seen the governor. Visually, I've never seen the governor. Visually, today, I see the panel, and I finally see two people pick up a pen to recognize what we were saying and taking notes of what we were saying. See, I'm visual. I'm a best friend when you're my friend, okay? But I want to know how serious are we, not you, but the governor, about this situation. We need to go to Springfield in March. That's where I took our land before. It wasn't just Rosewood, it was in Springfield. We need to get right ahead and make this, if necessary, we have to think about, and the panel needs to think about, another Civil War, Civil War II. Thank you.
We have two additional names on the list that I'll call, Miyako Rosenthal and Hunter Adams. If anybody else would like to give public comment, please come on down and line up. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Miyako Rosenthal. I'm the founder and president of Roots and Boots. We are a non-for-profit. We provide genealogy research for descendants of the emancipation of 1865. We also offer free lineage verification for our descendants as well. So when reparations does pass, we'll be lineage verified and we'll know who is qualified for reparations. On top of that, I would like to start off by quoting Malcolm. Malcolm said, what is an Aborigine? He said, when I look around the world, everybody that is an Aborigine looks like me. This color, right here. He also said, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. I say that to say, as a genealogist and doing genealogy work, when I'm digging through the archives and the records, that I'm finding that a lot of our ancestors did not come from Africa. A lot of our ancestors came from right here in the Americas and were reclassified throughout the centuries. So when we think about reparations, we have to think about reparations and starting from that point with the United States of America. All the rest of this is just noise. When it's coming from Chicago reparations and any other reparations task force, when it's coming from the federal government, we have to take into consideration the fact that we have been reclassified throughout the generations. So our repair and restitution involves more than just a check. It involves protection. It involves land. It involves health, mental, and so forth going on in an all-encompassing package for our people.
We cannot sit by and just allow it to be based on African descent, because African descent is not the base of us. I commend you, Slaughter. When I first started talking to you, it was always about lineage based.
Thank you, sister.
Good afternoon. Thank you, the commissioner, Mr. Slaughter, Dr. Slaughter, and all the commissioners for your work over these past 4 years. My name is Hunter Adams III. I am a cultural neuroscientist. I'm a board member of the Humanity PAC Alliance based in Portugal in the United States, and associate member of the then Center, the Center for Advancement of Neurobiology and Trauma. I have 3 quick points that I'll make. First one is addressed to Dr. Darity and his dearly beloved. I guess they must have stepped out. But I did some research, and there's an estimated $240 trillion accumulated in wealth from 1790 to 2013. So the calculations for debt has to be compared with how much wealth was accumulated by corporations, institutions, and individuals. The second point to you, the Commissioner, I gave a presentation to the National Council of Black Lawyers, 24 Harms of Ethnocide, which is an extension of the United Nations ethnocide criteria, that we have to have more specificity in the harms that were done. And so I have 24 classifications, which will be available in my forthcoming book, We Were Never Slaves, the Neuropolitics of Being Human. 2, we must stop calling our ancestral casualties of crimes of state slaves. They were human beings who were enslaved, right? And I would urge the commission to have some sort of language to that effect. And you can sit with me, I have the language, in public statements, because part of the task is to reclaim and reaffirm our humanity. The Portuguese called the captives that they first stole in the early 15th century ransom captives. They didn't use the word slave, right? In the document, the papal bull, they didn't use the word slave, they used servient. So, and I talked about this at the G20 summit in 2024, 2025. I've talked about this okay. So I would lastly just ask that the state of Illinois have an executive order to assert that we are human beings, not beings of inferior order, as the Chief Justice did in 1857. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to the commission. I am Dr. Akila Mukaram, president of the Afro-Descendant Nation. Thank you. I would like to say that I'll recommend to the commission that you elevate using Afro-descendant. Afro-descendant peoples is what we're recognized in the United Nations globally. And just to elevate us from racial discrimination to ethnocide. Afro-descendants are not simply a demographic within a broader category. We are a distinct people of African descent. We are a people formed through forced displacement from Africa, chattel enslavement in the Americas, and the systematic erasure of our mother tongue African languages and identity. This history did not just disperse a population, it produced a new people. Without precise recognition, Afro-descendants remain visible in discussion, but invisible in outcomes. And that is my recommendation for today. We were people that were forcibly displaced from Africa, transported to the Americas for the purposes of enslavement, subjected to slavery, subjected to forced mixed breeding and rape, experienced through force the loss of our African mother tongue languages, culture, and religion, and or have experienced through racial discrimination from partially lost ties or lost ties from our original identity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I am Leslie Triplett Bracy, and I was invited here by a friend of mine, so I want to thank her for the invitation. And I wanted to say thank you to all of the people on the board for doing this work that is so critical to all of us. Just one point of order, I didn't like some of the disrespect that was happening in the room, and I just wanted to say that we can disagree without being disagreeable. So that's one thing. And I didn't know that the massacre in East St. Louis was as widely known. My family is from East St. Louis and lived through that massacre. And so it was they knew some around there. So my family's from East St. Louis. And so it was quite interesting for me because it's one of the things that we talk about as a family. I'm actually from St. Louis and transported here and have made Chicago my home. And then my other thing is I agree that the room should be full. It's such an important conversation. It's such important work that you all are doing. And I wish that the rooms were more full. And so my request is, how can we help make that happen? How can we be more involved? How can we more support your effort? So that would be my request. Thank you.
Thank you, my sister.
Quick question, because of the sake of time. Does anyone else in the room have a number? Anyone else with a number? So Chair Slaughter, everyone else now is just lining up based on time. I know we're going to about 10 more minutes. We'll get through as many as we can. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shavonna Hunt, and I am here as a representative of Hustle Mommies Digging for Our Roots. I do an ancestry club every last Saturday of the month at Burst Into Books, which is a Black-owned bookstore located at 119 East 107th Street in Chicago, Illinois. If you are interested in learning more about your ancestry, please come join us. I also do workshops and seminars for free. I'm trying to get them back into the library. So we will be back at the bookstore in May. I also want to say I encourage you all to research your ancestry. You saw the eligibility up there. I want you all to research your genealogy because a lot of you are descendants of people that were indentured servitude indentured service in Illinois. So if you are in Chicago, some of you are the people that are in the report. If you read the report, you will see that there are specific families, and I know that some of the descendants of that family is here today, and they were technically enslaved. Okay, so your information could help with what they are doing, and the what they're trying to just any type of campaign or anything that they're putting forth. You might be a direct descendant of an Illinois enslaved person, and that's all I want to say. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Sean.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael Franklin. I am a qualified mental health professional, and I have about 25 or 30 years in the game of working with young people and families and what I call save the world stuff. I have some ideas on building infrastructures for civic engagement and mental health in a way that would educate and get people involved and and developing a social awareness and a consciousness of what we're doing here today. And it's my first time here today, so I'm going to hang around afterwards and just look for who I should be following up with, especially in the areas of mental health and civic engagement with youth. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother.
Okay then. Hello everybody. I'm DNA from the African Diaspora Information Center and the Temple of the African Community of Chicago. I'm here to represent descendants of enslaved Africans. All right. So I understand there's a big conversation. I hate to be rude during people's comments, but I do want to push back certain what I feel like Black people being enculturated into American xenophobic culture. All right, because the history of this country is clear. We don't have to go into the details, but no, when you talk about the federal government, W.E.B. Du Bois was the first Black person, when you say, to graduate from Harvard with a PhD. Carter G. Woodson was the second Black person to graduate from Harvard with a PhD. And then when they did the research all came back the same. Carter G. Woodson created Black History Month to remind Black people that they come from Africa, because W.E.B. Du Bois did the research and realized that they were trying to convince us that we were already here and they just came up here and dominated us and took over the land. But in actuality, the United States government segregated for servitude people of African descent and excluded from the government people who are already here. All right, so the history is clear. So I just wanted to say that, and I enjoyed the conversation, and I appreciate the leadership for people volunteering to do this type of work. All right, and that's us.
Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Melody Slaughter. I'm that one's sister. I didn't think I was going to speak, but I guess I should have just signed up in advance. Again, like, since I already know how things tend to go down. I believe as a Christian that I am called to the ministry of reconciliation, and I believe that that's not possible without repair. And I feel as though I would like to speak more so, first of all, just to my brother and the massive amount of time, energy, family time, and commitments that he's made, that he's sacrificed throughout the years in order to make this commitment for our community. And again, as somebody, another beautiful young lady said earlier, we can disagree without, getting disrespectful. And that is a man, that is a human. And so if we are here today to talk about and educate and fight and advocate for our rights as human beings, we need to see one another as also human beings first and foremost. And so I really just wanted to come up here and say that. I also wanted to say that, for those who are not Black, thank y'all for y'all allyship, because we need your support too. It's not going to happen alone. This is not going to get done alone. And I think we also need to understand, yes, speak truth. I'm not saying not to speak truth, but y'all don't have to beat people up over the head. You don't got to yell at folks. You don't got to cuss nobody out. If they disagree, that's fine. But let's love one another, okay? Let's love one another as we advocate for ourselves, because those two things can coexist. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Good afternoon. My name is Denzel Johnson. I'm from the far south side of Chicago, from the West Pullman Roseland neighborhood. Grew up in Auburn Gresham. But I'm here today as a member of this community, as someone who lives with the consequences of history every day. And whether or not my family is directly enslaved or not, I need to do my genealogy. So I'll be tapping in at Birthstone Books to make sure I understand that more. I'm here in support of House Bill 1227. I'm sorry. The bill was already spoke about, so you already know what the bill entails. But I just want to see that disinvestment from Chicago change. I've seen it in the way that we walk, the way we carry ourselves in our schools, hospitals, you name it. This is the direct result of policies that were built to exploit us. And a lot of times we're put against each other and not fighting the systems which have been putting us this way. So I'm here. I'm with Get Free. So I want to make sure I shout out my family that brought me into the room today. And I just ask that you all, as the commission, adopt the House Bill 1227. As you know, America's birthday is coming up, 250 years. And I want to see in my, as I'm alive, I'm 29 years old. I hope we don't take 250 more years for us to be able to get this off the ground and actually make this something implemented into the world that we know today. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have time for one more comment. We have time for one more comment.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Christy Kingsley. I'm the founder of Ubuntu Yami. In Swahili, it means I am because we are a community. And it's for to support entrepreneurs, creators, and professionals who are Black, to uplift and support our businesses. As you all know, our dollars only circulate for a certain amount of hours. But in other countries and cultures, it's for years, decades. And so if we don't buy Black, bequeath Black, barter Black, invest Black, build Black, then what are we doing? And so I always say, think about people that live down the street from you. John, who makes an awesome pie, he needs your support. Sarah, who's an awesome seamstress, get your clothes tailored. Think of those people first before you go into another community, because those other groups are supporting their people first, as it should be. And so that being said, I also participate at Burst Into Books with Shavana Hunt, her Ancestry Club. Years ago when I was studying dance in college at Columbia, I had an African dance teacher that taught at Muntu, and he was like, do you all know where you come from? And I was like, Olympia Fields, the suburbs, whatever. He was like, no, like, can you actually trace your family? And I did. I traced it on my mother's side to the 17th century. Mm-hmm. He made us write a paper. Mm-hmm. And I can trace my father's side on the 18th century. Yep. So it's important about knowing who you are and what you are. So my point that I'm making is this room should be filled. As a former Girl Scout troop leader, I did it for 15 years. I did with high schoolers, freshmen through seniors, Black girls in Chicago. I would implore you all to reach out to the young people, Jack and Jill, your Facebook groups. They need to be here. I understand we have, a 35 and older crowd in here, but where are your teens? That is the future. You must look back and say, let me get the babies. Yeah. Find ways to incentivize parents to bring them here. I know it's like, this is free. We're giving our time, but something. Give them, a free ice cream cone. Something that gets people here so that we can all talk, because it's important that we're talking, but the youth are also watching us. So I just wanted to say that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. That now concludes public comment. Thank you, Patty, for your allyship. I want to go ahead and acknowledge all of the elected officials in the room. First, starting with our very own elected official, Representative Sonia Harper, who's a commissioner. Are there any additional elected officials in the room outside of Mayor Atkins? Thank you again for you coming out today. Okay. All right. So y'all, now the exciting part kind of comes. We've talked and we've learned a lot about a lot of different things: the religious imperative of reparations, the economic imperative, the origins of the racial wealth gap. Now we get to talk about next steps, and our next steps include a survey. We have created and compiled a list of policy recommendations for the state of Illinois to redress the harms that it has caused individuals who are descendants of U.S. chattel slavery in the state of Illinois. We want you all to go on the survey. We want you to rank our policies. We want you to tell us, out of these policies, what do you care about the most? So when we hear individuals talk about an executive order to the governor, we need numbers. We're going to need support. When some of this stuff has to get legislated, Rep. Sonia Harper is going to need 1,000 of y'all down in Springfield beating down doors in the same way that individuals like to come to the mic and beat that down at these public hearings. So we encourage you all to take the survey. We have put in a lot of work to be able to develop these policies. We're at a stage now where we're just looking for your input as far as where do these policies fall with respect to how you think about what you need. We have, requested recommendations from community organizations, the NAACP, the Cook County Bar Association, the Prairie State Medical Society, to be able to address issues under each of our harm areas. So each of these recommendations is tied explicitly to a harm category that is in our report, which will give us some legal protection. So we encourage you all to be able to take this survey, both allies and individuals who are descendants, and we encourage you to share this survey. We want 800,000. We want 1 million respondents. We want as many respondents as we can get to be able to show the momentum for this issue. So there are approximately 1.6 million Black individuals in the state of Illinois. Well, I want 1.6 million surveys, so y'all got homework. All right. Has everybody had an opportunity to scan the QR code? If you haven't had the opportunity to scan the QR code, the survey is also on our website at adcrc.illinois.gov. It's a survey tab at the top. You can go there, send it to all your friends, all your family, have Sunday morning conversations about it, Sunday dinner conversations about it. Talk to all your friends and family about it. We're going to take the results of this survey. We're going to roll that into legislation. We're going to roll that into things like recommendations to the governor for executive orders. And we're going to go with that demand. But we need your energy. So everybody who showed up here today, we thank you because this matters. But we also encourage you to stay in contact with us as a commission. We have monthly public meetings. And the next couple months are going to be extremely important as we're approaching a general election. This is a perfect time to apply pressure. So if you care about this issue, and you care about the issues that we've outlined, the solutions that we've outlined in our survey, we ask that you come out, that you use your voice, that you use your organizing talents, that you use the social capital that you have, that you bring your families with you to be able, so we can put y'all to work as far as some of this advocacy work. All right, you all. Follow us on our social medias. We do have Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. We post relatively often. We will be around briefly towards the end. I'll stick around for a bit for those who want to have conversations around strategy. Other than that, we thank you all for your attendance at this public hearing, and I ask that you all go forth in peace. Thank you.